Forget everything you think you know about high-stakes heists. This isn't about masked criminals with bags. It's about $102 million worth of stolen royal jewels, a crime so expertly executed that it left the world's top detectives scratching their heads, all while a brash billionaire used the situation to mock a nation and ignite an international conflict. We're referring to the Louvre heist, during which Empress Eugenie's crowns disappeared in broad daylight. But the tale doesn't just revolve around the thieves. It begins with them and takes a turn thanks to one man who always plays by his own rules, Pavel Durov, the CEO of Telegram. Upon witnessing the crime, instead of alerting the authorities, he took a jab at an entire government and offered to purchase the stolen items, but with a chilling twist, he intended to return them to a museum 4,000 miles away. This isn't merely a story of theft. It's an unfiltered examination of power, paranoia, and the cost of cultural pride in a world where the wealthy dictate the narrative. Brace yourself, because the streets are buzzing, and this is what they've picked up. If you're enjoying this video, let's take a quick pause. We will humbly ask you to please subscribe, as that will help us on our long journey to YouTube monetization. And now back to the video. Look, the Louvre is not just a museum, it's a fortress. It holds the Mona Lisa, for crying out loud. It's got more security layers than an onion. So when the news dropped that 4 ghosts really, walked into the Apollo Gallery and vanished with 8 royal artifacts worth a minimum of $102 million, the first reaction wasn't shock, it was disbelief. People thought it had to be a joke, a mistake. But it wasn't. It was real, and it was the perfect slap in the face to the French state. This wasn't a smash-and-run job from some amateurs trying to score quick cash for rent. This was surgical precision. The Apollo Gallery. Think of it as the inner sanctum where the most precious history sits. We're talking about the crowns and emerald necklaces once owned by Empress Eugenie and Empress Marie-Louise. These aren't just display pieces. They are the physical manifestation of an empire's wealth. And on October 19th, right in the middle of the day, when the place was supposedly crawling with people and cameras, these 4 pulled it off. How? That's the question that had French officials tearing their hair out. The official story is still murky, which just adds to the street buzz. They didn't use violence. They didn't set off alarms that anyone heard outside the walls. They bypassed systems that cost millions, systems designed by the best in the business. It suggests 2 things that are terrifying to any security expert: inside knowledge and military-grade preparation. These thieves weren't just fast, they were invisible. They knew the blind spots, the shift changes, the exact moment the security cameras blinked. They knew which wire to cut, which pressure plate to avoid. It wasn't about strength, it was about silence and smarts. The moment they realized what was gone, Paris went into lockdown mode. Think of the panic. The city's reputation as a safe keeper of global treasures, its pride, everything was on the line. The police response was immediate, but also deeply flawed. They were chasing shadows. The 4 suspects were already history, swallowed up by the Parisian streets. Every minute that ticked by just amplified the shame. This wasn't just a crime, it was an act of high-level disrespect. It screamed to the world, your security is a joke. Your history is exposed. The authorities were scrambling, looking foolish, and that's when the second character in this drama stepped onto the stage, ready to twist the knife. Pavel Durov isn't just rich. He's got that kind of cold, quiet power that comes from controlling a messaging app used by hundreds of millions of people who value privacy above all else. He's built his empire on the idea that governments can't be trusted, that the system is weak and flawed. So, when the news of the Louvre heist broke, it wasn't just a headline to him, it was proof. It was the ultimate, I told you so. He didn't just log on to X, formerly Twitter, to say, that's crazy. He logged on to deliver a calculated, ice-cold verdict. He didn't waste time with sympathy. He went straight for the jugular, calling the heist another sad sign of the decline of a once great country. He accused the French government of being distracted by phantom threats, instead of confronting the real ones. That's not just criticism, that's an indictment of an entire nation's governance, delivered in 140 characters or less. The people saw it immediately. This wasn't a random comment. This was a direct, political shot fired from a digital sovereign. He was using the $102 million hole in the Louvre vault as a visual aid for his own worldview. The stolen gems weren't just missing jewels, They were a symbol of Western Europe's perceived decay in the eyes of a new wave of tech and financial power. And as the police were running in circles, Durov was already setting up the next, even more shocking act. He was about to turn a simple robbery into a global cultural standoff. The street talk wasn't just about the thieves anymore. It was about the audacity of the man who dared to call out an empire right after it had been robbed blind. The first battle was over, the criminals had won, but the war for global standing was just starting, and Durov was about to raise the stakes in a way nobody expected. The dust from the robbery was still settling, but the firestorm was just getting started. Durov, man, he didn't just walk into the debate. He kicked the doors in. His first post, calling France a declining country, was the appetizer. The second one, the one that went global and made this whole thing a diplomatic incident, was the main course, served cold. Think about the silence after that first shot. French officials, the Louvre management, they were reeling, trying to contain the narrative. This was an isolated incident. Our security is fine. We will catch them. Then Durov drops the bomb, happy to buy the stolen jewelry and donate it back to the Louvre. I mean Louvre Abu Dhabi, of course. No one steals from Louvre Abu Dhabi. That single line wasn't just sarcasm. It was a digital dagger aimed right at the heart of French pride. He took the nation's biggest moment of shame, the lost $102 million in royal bling, and used his own immense wealth to publicly bet against their future. It wasn't an offer to help. It was an offer to humiliate. He was essentially saying, I'll put up the cash, but France has proven it can't hold on to its own history. The treasures belong in a better vault. And the vault he chose? The Louvre Abu Dhabi. Now, you have to understand the Louvre Abu Dhabi to get the gravity of that statement. It's not just some random museum. It's a modern architectural marvel, opened in 2017, the result of a massive, controversial deal where France basically rented out the Louvre name, along with thousands of precious artifacts, to the UAE for 30 years. It was a partnership based on money, ambition, and global status. By saying the stolen French jewel should go there, Durov was pointing a big, neon arrow at the whole messy arrangement. The reaction online was explosive. Half the world saw it as a legitimate point about security. They were posting screenshots of the Louvre's old stone walls and comparing them to pictures of the Louvre Abu Dhabi's pristine, high-tech, geometric dome, a modern marvel rising out of the Gulf. Users were saying, he's right. The Abu Dhabi Museum uses wireless surveillance technology to monitor every object, down to the movement on an X/Y/Z axis. It's a smart museum. Paris is living in the 19th century. The argument being, why trust priceless heritage to a government that let 4 people walk in and cut through the glass of display cases in the Galerie d'Apollon? It's negligence, and Durov, with his tech billionaire eyes, saw the obvious flaw. But the other half saw Durov's remark as pure provocation, a spoiled rich kid trying to settle a score. And there was a score to settle. Remember, Durov himself was detained by French authorities at the Le Bourget airport near Paris just months before this, based on an arrest warrant tied to his role at Telegram and allegations that the platform facilitated various criminal activities. The French government had put the squeeze on him. So when he made this comment, it wasn't just cultural critique, it was personal revenge. It was Durov publicly spitting in the eye of the state that had tried to cuff him, using their own stolen history as his weapon. You think you can come after me? I'll show the world how weak you are. This shift turned a local crime story into a global debate on cultural heritage security. Suddenly, the Empress Eugenie's emerald necklace wasn't just a lost antique. It was a pawn in a larger game about which region, the established, historically rich West, or the ambitious, cash-rich Middle East, was the better custodian of civilization's treasures. The tension was palpable. Users were arguing over whether the decline of a once great country was real, whether France had grown soft and distracted, prioritizing laissez-faire attitudes over hard security. The beauty of Durov's maneuver was its double-edged power. He simultaneously championed a rising power, the UAE, and severely chastised an established one, France. He forced everyone to ask the uncomfortable question, are our priceless cultural artifacts safer in the hands of tradition or in the vaults of modern, petrodollar-fueled security? And the silence from both Louvres, Paris shocked, Abu Dhabi discreetly pleased, only amplified the sound of the controversy. The jewels were gone, but the real damage was being done on the digital battlefield, where Durov was winning the war of public opinion one scathing, viral post at a time. The world was watching, waiting to see if anyone in Paris had the guts to fire back and defend their wounded national pride. If Durov's statement was a punch, the reaction from France was a slow burn of humiliation. The government and cultural elite couldn't respond directly without giving his argument more weight, so they did the only thing they could. They focused on the thieves while the whole world was focused on the hole in their security. But Durov had already shifted the conversation, forcing everyone to look at the real rot underneath, the technological and cultural gap between the old world and the new. This is where the story gets philosophical, street style, because it asks, who is more fit to hold history? Durov's choice of the Louvre Abu Dhabi was no accident. It was the absolute perfect symbol for his argument. Think about the contrast. The Paris Louvre? It's magnificent, sure, but it's an old palace converted into a museum. It's got history layered on history, which means old infrastructure, outdated wiring, and security systems that are tacked on, not built in. Reports coming out later confirmed it. The surveillance was aging and highly insufficient. The one camera covering the area of the break-in was directed westward and therefore did not cover the balcony involved in the break-in. Let me translate that. The most valuable jewels in the building were guarded by a camera with a blind spot, and the thieves knew exactly where it was. They used a simple lift truck and a chainsaw, basic construction tools, to get in through a window. The alarm system went off, but the delay between the alert and the response was the 7 minutes the thieves needed to grab the crowns and get gone. Now look at the Louvre Abu Dhabi. It's the new money. It's a modern, purpose-built museum city designed by a Pritzker Prize-winning architect, Jean Nouvel. It's built on the idea of being a universal museum, a cultural powerhouse in the region. But for Durov, it was the perfect vault. Why? Because it was built from the ground up with 21st century security in mind. We're talking about Forteco Solutions pioneering wireless surveillance technology, sensors integrated into every display case, invisible readers, and systems that don't just monitor for movement, but track it across multiple axes. If someone so much as leaned too close to a case, an alert would go off instantly. If those thieves had tried the same trick in Abu Dhabi, AI-powered cameras would have flagged the truck and the ladder before they even touched the wall. The contrast is brutally clear. Tradition versus technology. Complacency versus control. Durov was exploiting a deep, underlying tension. For decades, Europe, particularly France, used its cultural institutions, the Louvre, the British Museum, as a source of soft power, a way to project influence and cultural superiority globally. But now, the rising powers in the Gulf, fueled by massive wealth, are playing the same game, but with bigger budgets and better tech. They didn't just want the art, they wanted the legitimacy and the security credibility that comes with hosting the best. Durov's tweet was a public certification. The Arab Gulf is now the superior keeper of global treasures. And that's where the price of pride comes in. The French government, with President Macron at the top, was forced to confront the truth. They were resting on laurels that were turning brittle. Their defense of French grandeur was undercut by the simple fact that a gang of highly competent thieves made off with their most treasured historical jewels in a matter of minutes. The lost items like the sapphire necklace and the Empress's brooch, were not just insurance claims, they were national scar tissue. They became symbols of a distracted, overconfident, and technologically complacent government. Durov, the self-proclaimed defender of digital freedom and security, saw the whole spectacle as the perfect analogy for the modern world. The old institutions that rely on reputation are falling apart, and the future belongs to those who invest in superior, centralized, and unforgiving technology. He wasn't just being mean. He was laying out his worldview with a $102 million exhibit. He was saying, you worry about phantom threats while the real threats are cutting through your glass with an angle grinder. The silence from the French Ministry of Culture was deafening, a tacit admission that when measured by the cold, hard standard of technological security, Durov was right. The jewels were gone, but the narrative, the soul of the story, was now in the hands of the billionaire who dared to buy back history and relocate it to a modern fortress, a move of defiance that no one in Paris could ignore. This wasn't just about security anymore. It was about the changing balance of global power and who gets to decide what is safe. And the next question is the hardest. What does this mean for the future of stolen art, and what kind of market has Durov just created? The controversy didn't die down, it just went cold, burrowing into the halls of power and the underworld of art crime. Durov's move had forced a checkmate on the cultural battlefield. He had won the argument. But the jewels, the real, physical $102 million in diamonds and emeralds, were still missing. The immediate aftermath was pure chaos, a desperate, silent hunt. The French police, embarrassed on a global scale, doubled down. They brought in the Special Brigade for combating banditry, treating this not like an art theft, but a severe national security breach. But the thieves were pros. Every art detective on the street, the ones who talk to the fences and know the dark underbelly of the global art market, were all saying the same thing. It's too late. Experts feared the gems would be broken up. Those crowns and brooches, priceless for their historical integrity, would be reduced to thousands of smaller, untraceable stones, sold for a fraction of the historical value, laundered through shadow networks, and then scattered across the globe. You can't put a historical crown on the open market, but a loose, high-quality emerald? That disappears instantly. The possibility of full recovery dwindled with every hour. The French government, cornered by Durov's public challenge, was forced to play a desperate hand. President Macron himself vowed to find the thieves and restore the stolen heritage. Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin publicly acknowledged serious security shortcomings at the museum, a direct, if unstated, concession to Durov's point about decline. The Louvre closed for 2 days, not just for the investigation, but out of sheer raw shame. The visible sign of the crime, the broken window in the Apollo Gallery, became a temporary, morbid tourist attraction, a physical symbol of French vulnerability. But the final twist is the geopolitical silence that followed Durov's offer. The Louvre Abu Dhabi, the intended recipient, said nothing. No thank you. No rejection. Just absolute, calculated silence. That silence was louder than any tweet. It signaled a kind of diplomatic detachment. They didn't need to engage. Durov had done the heavy lifting for them. They had been publicly endorsed as the superior custodian, and engaging in the controversy would only diminish that victory. They let the French government bleed publicly, while quietly polishing the already state-of-the-art security systems that Durov had championed. And what about Durov himself? He disappeared back into the digital ether, mission accomplished. He didn't actually need to buy the jewels. The act of offering to, with the condition attached, was the real power play. He used his billion-dollar wallet to send a crystal-clear message to the old guard. Your pride is obsolete. Your history is unsafe. Your systems are weak. He wasn't just mocking Paris. He was flexing the financial and technological might of the new global order, an order that is often less sentimental and more focused on absolute control and security, the very principles he champions with Telegram. The ultimate concession is this. The $102 million Louvre heist became more than a robbery. It became a profound, philosophical argument about cultural ownership and technological relevance. The thieves took the jewels, but Pavel Durov took the narrative and the dignity of one of the world's most powerful nations. He showed, using simple street logic, that in the 21st century, history is no longer protected by tradition or reputation, but by the best available technology and the biggest bank account. The most valuable treasures are going to gravitate toward the hardest, most secure vaults, regardless of where they were originally created. The story ends right here, on a cliffhanger that hangs heavy over the world. The stolen crowns of the French empresses are still missing, but the confidence of France is gone forever. And the silence from the Gulf, the quiet assurance that no one steals from Louvre Abu Dhabi, serves as a cold, powerful conclusion. The question is no longer where the jewels are, but who truly owns the past when they can no longer keep it safe. And the man who asked that question, the tech giant, now sits on his digital throne, having exposed the soft underbelly of a crumbling empire with a single, perfectly aimed, $102 million insult. Please, if you enjoyed this video, we humbly ask you to please subscribe, as that will help us on our long journey to YouTube monetization. And now back to the video.